Hello and welcome to What the Just Happened Today, your essential guide to the daily shock and awe in national politics. I'm Joe Amditis. Let's get to it. It's Thursday, April 22nd, 2021. Welcome to day 93. Biden pledged to reduce U.S. greenhouse gas emissions by at least 50% by the year 2030, double the U.S.'s prior commitment under the 2015 Paris Climate Agreement. Biden said the signs are unmistakable, the science is undeniable, and the cost of inaction keeps mounting. As of 2019, U.S. emissions were at about 13% below 2005 levels. During an Earth Day summit with 40 world leaders, Biden said this is the decisive decade. This is the decade that we must make decisions to avoid the worst consequences of the climate crisis. This is a moral imperative, an economic imperative, a moment of peril, but also a moment of extraordinary possibilities. Roughly 85% of current global emissions come from outside the U.S., and the United Kingdom recently announced its own plans to reduce emissions by 78% by 2035, while the European Union pledged to cut 55% of its emissions by 2030. China, the world's largest emitter, pledged to reduce coal consumption starting in 2025 as part of an effort to reach net zero emissions by 2060. Moving on, the Senate passed legislation denouncing discrimination against Asian communities in the United States. The bill will also appoint an official in the Justice Department to review and expedite COVID-19 related hate crime reports. The vote was 94-1, with Senator Josh Hawley voting in opposition. The legislation is expected to pass in the House before heading to Biden's desk for a signature. Meanwhile, the House voted along party lines to grant statehood to Washington, D.C. The legislation would enfranchise more than 712,000 Americans and give the 51st state one representative in the House and 2 senators. The White House, the Capitol, and the National Mall would remain a federal district. An identical bill passed in the House in 2020, but then died in the then Republican-controlled Senate. The legislation would likely require at least 10 Republican senators to vote in support of the bill in order to clear the 60-vote threshold for passage. It's unclear if even all the Senate Democrats support the bill, which the Republicans have called a Democratic power grab. Moving on, the average daily number of coronavirus vaccinations in the United States dropped 11%. Over the past week, 3.02 million doses per day were administered, the biggest downturn in the 7-day average since February, when winter storms forced vaccination sites to close and delayed the shipments worldwide. Meanwhile, an Office of Professional Responsibility investigation found that a Capitol Police officer radioed all outside units' attention on the morning of January 6th and said that they should not be looking for any pro-Trump in the crowd. Representative Zoe Lofgren, describing the radio broadcast during a House Administration Committee hearing on security failures around the Capitol attack, added that the radio transmission directed police to only look for any anti-Trump protesters. Capitol Police, meanwhile, said the call has been misquoted and is lacking necessary context. Moving on, the Trump administration delayed approximately $20 billion in hurricane relief for Puerto Rico and then obstructed the investigation into the delay. This according to a Housing and Urban Development Inspector General report. The report says delays and denials of access and refusals to cooperate negatively affected the ability of the Office of Inspector General to conduct this review. Inspector General Ray Oliver Davis, appointed by Trump, found unprecedented bureaucratic hurdles set up by the White House, including former senior administration officials in the Office of Management and Budget refusing to provide requested information about decision-making related to the relief funds. Back in D.C., Biden is expected to formally acknowledge that the killing of an estimated 1.5 million Armenians in the early 20th century constituted a genocide. A bipartisan group of more than 100 House members have called on Biden to become the first U.S. president to recognize the World War I-era deportation, starvation, and massacres of Armenians by the Ottoman Empire in modern-day Turkey as a genocide. Turkey, meanwhile, has denied that the killings constituted genocide, saying that the Armenians rose up against the government. Biden is also expected to propose almost doubling the capital gains tax rate for people earning more than $1 million, increasing the rate that they would pay on that income from 20 to 39.6%. The proposal would help pay for Biden's American Family Plan, which would provide hundreds of billions of dollars for universal pre-K, as well as expanded subsidies for childcare, a national paid leave program, and free community college tuition. Biden will detail the American Family Plan in a joint address to Congress on April 28th. And finally, Senate Republicans released an outline for their own $568 billion infrastructure plan. Democrats rejected the counteroffer to Biden's $2 trillion infrastructure spending package, calling the GOP proposal totally anemic and an insult. Elizabeth Warren added that the Republican proposal does not meet the moment.
That's all for now. You can find the links and sources for all of these stories on the main website. And as always, visit whatthefjusthappenedtoday.com for the latest news and headlines. Until next time, I'm Joe Amditas.